There are many things in this world that people see every day. News reports, official statements, and public announcements. But behind all of that, there is a question that has existed for generations. What is not being said? Governments around the world operate on information. They collect it, analyze it, and decide what should be shared with the public and what should remain hidden. This does not always mean something dangerous or sinister. In many cases, information is withheld for reasons like national security, public stability, or ongoing investigations. But sometimes, the lack of transparency creates mystery, and mystery leads to questions. Throughout history, there have been moments when information was intentionally kept secret, only to be revealed years later. Documents once classified have shown that governments have conducted experiments, hidden operations, and made decisions that were never meant to be public. This is not speculation. It is documented history. So the question becomes, what else might still be hidden today? One of the most discussed areas is surveillance. In the modern world, technology allows governments to monitor communication on a massive scale. Phones, emails, and even online activity can be tracked and analyzed. While this is often done to prevent crime or threats, it also raises concerns about privacy. How much is being watched? And how much do we actually know about it? Another area that often raises questions is advanced technology. There are always rumors about technologies that exist far beyond what is publicly available. Whether it is military innovation, artificial intelligence, or experimental energy systems, people often wonder if governments are years ahead of what they reveal. History suggests that this is sometimes true. Technologies like the internet and GPS were once developed for military purposes before becoming part of everyday life. So it is natural to ask, what exists today that has not yet been shown to the public? Then there are restricted locations. Around the world, there are places that are heavily guarded and closed to the public. These locations are often linked to military operations, research facilities, or testing grounds. The secrecy surrounding them has led to countless theories. People imagine what could be happening behind those fences. Some ideas are realistic, others are more extreme, but the lack of access keeps the curiosity alive. Another topic that often appears in discussions is information control. News and media play a powerful role in shaping how people understand the world. Governments, in some cases, influence what information is highlighted and what is minimized. This does not always mean false information. Sometimes it simply means choosing what to focus on. But that choice can change how events are perceived. There is also the question of crisis management. In times of global events, whether economic, environmental, or political, governments often control the flow of information to avoid panic. This can be necessary, but it also means that the full picture is not always immediately visible. Over time, details emerge, reports are released, stories are clarified, and sometimes the truth turns out to be more complex than people originally believed. Another area that creates curiosity is scientific research. There are projects and studies that are not fully disclosed to the public. This can be due to funding sources, security concerns, or simply because the research is still ongoing. But it raises an interesting thought. How much do we actually know about what is being discovered right now? Perhaps one of the most powerful aspects of this topic is not the answers, but the uncertainty. Humans naturally want to understand the world around them. When information is incomplete, the mind begins to fill in the gaps. This is where theories are born. Some of them are based on real events. Others are built entirely on imagination, and distinguishing between the two is not always easy. It is important to approach these questions with critical thinking. Not everything that is hidden is dangerous, and not everything that sounds convincing is true. At the same time, history shows that transparency is not always immediate. Information evolves. What is secret today might be public tomorrow, and what seems impossible today might become reality in the future. So instead of asking, what are governments hiding? Perhaps a better question is, how does information shape what we believe? Because in the end, understanding the flow of information is just as important as the information itself. The world is complex, and sometimes what we don't know is just as powerful as what we do. If we continue to explore the idea of hidden information, one of the most fascinating aspects is how perception can be shaped without people even realizing it. Information is not only about what is shared, it is also about how it is presented. Two people can hear the same news, see the same event, and come away with completely different conclusions. This is not always because the facts are different, but because the context, tone, and framing influence how the information is understood. This raises an interesting thought. If information can be shaped, then reality, in a way, can feel shaped too. Another layer to consider is how quickly information travels in the modern world. In the past, news moved slowly. Today, it spreads instantly across the globe. Social media platforms allow anyone to share ideas, opinions, and interpretations within seconds. This creates both opportunity and confusion. On one hand, more information is available than ever before. On the other hand, it becomes harder to determine what is accurate and what is not. This environment makes it easier for uncertainty to grow, and where there is uncertainty, there is curiosity. And where there is curiosity, there are always questions. Some of those questions focus on events that seem unusual or unexplained. For example, sudden decisions made on a large scale, unexpected changes in policy, or events that do not have clear explanations at first. These situations often lead people to wonder if there is more happening behind the scenes. Sometimes there is, but not always in the way people expect. Large systems, like governments, are complex. Decisions are influenced by many factors: economics, security, international relationships, and internal challenges. What might appear mysterious from the outside can sometimes be the result of complicated processes that are not immediately visible. However, the lack of visible explanation leaves space for interpretation. And interpretation can take many forms. Another area where questions often arise is long-term planning. Governments do not only react to current events, they also plan for the future, sometimes decades ahead. This includes preparing for risks, developing strategies, and considering scenarios that may never even happen. These plans are not always public, and that makes sense. If every possible scenario were openly discussed, it could create unnecessary fear or misunderstanding. But it also means that there are ideas and strategies that people are not aware of, which leads to another question. How much of the future is being planned in ways we do not see? There is also the role of international cooperation. Countries do not operate in isolation. They communicate, negotiate, and sometimes collaborate in ways that are not always visible to the public. Agreements are made behind closed doors. Discussions take place that are never recorded in public statements. This is a normal part of diplomacy, but it can also create a sense that something is hidden, because, in a way, it is. Another interesting aspect is how information changes over time. What is considered confidential today may become public years later. Documents are declassified. Reports are released. Stories are told that were once unknown. When this happens, it often reshapes how people understand the past. Events that seem simple can turn out to be far more complex. Decisions that were questioned can be explained in new ways. And sometimes, unexpected details emerge. This pattern suggests that the full picture of any moment in history is rarely visible right away. It takes time, which means that right now, in the present, there are likely details that will only be understood in the future. This is not necessarily a sign of secrecy for negative reasons. It is often just the nature of how information works in large systems. Still, it creates a powerful sense of mystery, and humans are naturally drawn to mystery. It is part of how we think, how we explore, and how we try to make sense of the world. Another important factor to consider is human psychology. People tend to look for patterns even where none exist. We connect dots, build narratives, and try to explain things in ways that feel logical. Sometimes, this leads to accurate understanding. Other times, it leads to assumptions. This does not mean that questions should not be asked. In fact, asking questions is essential. But it also means that not every unanswered question has a hidden answer behind it. Some things are still developing, and some things are not yet fully understood. One of the most interesting perspectives on this topic is the idea that information itself is a form of power. Those who control information can influence how others see the world. This does not always involve manipulation. It can simply be the result of deciding what information is most important to share at a given time. But it highlights how important it is to think critically, to question, but also to analyze, to stay curious, but also to stay grounded. Because in a world with so much information, the real challenge is not access. It is understanding. Understanding what is known, understanding what is unknown, and understanding the difference between the two. In the end, the idea of hidden information is not just about governments or institutions, it is about the nature of knowledge itself. There will always be things that are not immediately visible. There will always be layers that take time to uncover, and there will always be questions that do not have simple answers. But perhaps that is what makes the world so interesting, not the certainty. Because the more we learn, the more we realize how much there is still to understand. And maybe, just maybe, that is the real mystery.